Now we're going to dive back into my personal story and talk for a little bit about how I came to know for sure, beyond a reasonable doubt, that I am transgender and that I was meant to be a man. For about 4 years, I was in the closet, which means I didn't tell anyone that I thought I might be transgender, and I kept it a complete secret. I did this because I didn't know how they would react. I was afraid a lot of people would be hostile to me. I was in denial myself, since transgender still sounded really weird and complicated, and I didn't want to have another thing like that to worry about. And also, I just didn't want another thing for my family to have to worry about. I also stayed in the closet for a bunch of smaller, less significant reasons. Like, I remember I really specifically didn't want to be out and be a man in college, because then I would have to have a male roommate, and men are just stereotypically gross, and I just didn't want to have to live with someone like that. But instead of going away over time, this feeling of gender dysphoria, being extremely uncomfortable with the gender I was, got worse and worse over time. It felt like it was like a cage that was just crushing in on me more and more, until eventually I had to say something. I came out of the closet when I was 15, shortly before my 16th birthday, because I really didn't want it to say that I was female on my driver's license. And I did this by first telling my friends, who I thought would be more supportive. Then I told my family, and eventually the school administration. And I told them pretty much what I already told you guys if you've been watching the previous video segments. I explained that I thought that I was transgender because I really didn't like the female aspects of my body and who I was, since I knew that I was meant to be a boy. I said that this was not something I could control, since I had been trying to make that feeling go away for 15 years, but it's just who I was. I also asked that they treat me like a boy and call me Ernst or Ernie, which was my great-grandfather's name, since I wanted to show that I still really respected our family and wanted to be a part of it. My family was very confused and somewhat skeptical when I first came out, as I expected, but as time passed, they eventually got used to it and called me their son. Once they had called me Ernie for a very long time, and I got used to it and they got used to it, and it really felt right, I finally decided to change it legally so that I could change my name on my social security card, my passport, my driver's license, all legal documentation. This was a complicated process. It took about 6 months. It's a little bit more complicated than changing your name after a marriage or divorce, because it also required that I get special documentation from a medical professional formally diagnosing me with gender dysphoria to say that this is a legitimate legal change that needs to happen. I'm glad that I got to do this, because your name is who you are in the most literal sense, and I believe that everyone should have the freedom to control who they are, because this is America and that's a very important thing. But that's also a really big change right there, and it makes sense that that's a change that I should have the freedom to make, but it also makes sense that I should only do that change once I know for sure 100% that that's the right change to do for me. And I found this out by experimenting. You'd experiment with gender the same way that you'd experiment with anything, by trying it out in a safe and reversible way and just seeing how it feels. You don't need to be a scientist. This kind of experimenting is just about independence and freedom. For example, you might experiment with babysitting or working at a kids center to see if you want to have children of your own someday. Or you might experiment by taking care of a friend's dog for a while to see if one day you might want to have your own dog. For experimenting with gender, this might mean changing your hairstyle, the clothes that you wear, going by a different name, all sorts of easily reversible ways to change how you present yourself and how you're seen by others, so that you can just see how it feels. I've known several people who thought that they might be transgender, then experimented with different names and hairstyles and clothing, and realized that it actually didn't feel right for them. And because it was safe and reversible, they went back to presenting as the gender they originally were, and now they're doing really great. Only you can decide the results of your personal gender experimentation, if you choose to do so, because you deserve to control who you are without any influence from anyone else, especially not the government. When I experimented with my gender, I cut my hair, I wore more masculine clothes, I went by the name Ernie, and I wore what's called a binder. A binder is like a super tight sports bra that's designed to squish and hide your breast as much as possible so that I could have a smooth and flat looking masculine chest. And as you would imagine, my breasts were definitely the thing that I disliked most about my body. So flattening that and making my chest look like a man's chest was a huge game changer. I loved the way that my binder made me look and how good I felt when I put it on because I felt like a man and I felt like myself. But binders are dangerous. It's unsafe to wear them for more than 8 to 10 hours in a row because they squeeze your chest so tightly that once you wear them for too long, they can actually cause irreversible damage to your ribs. I remember the fear and pain of pulling my sweaty binder off after 12 or 14 hours and seeing these big red marks all across my chest and just hoping that today wasn't the day that I accidentally went too far. But the worst part about taking my binder off every day was always seeing my breast come back and being reminded that no matter how hard I was trying, I was still looking like a girl. I'm glad that I got this opportunity to experiment and see what made me feel best about who I was, because it also showed me that I had to do more.